Well, welcome to the Mary Red Nelson Hampton Nation Alumni Show. And let me drinking my coffee out of what? Out of the VUU cup. But anyway, welcome everybody, and we have a very special show for us today. We have a very special guest, and he is Dr. Terrell Strayhorn. And as we are the Hampton Roads chapter of Virginia Union Alumni Association, and our guest is from Hampton Roads, from Virginia Beach, went to Kempsville High, and Dennis said the other day he should have gone to Western Branch, but that's another story. We'll talk about that another time. He had to go where he was in Virginia Beach. But anyway, let me give you a brief bio of this young man. And as I'm looking at him and I'm reading the bio, I'm saying he must have started at about 5 years old, at making these achievements to get to the point where he is now, looking the way he looks. But anyway, that's about taking care of yourself. But anyway, Dr. Terrell Strayhorn is the leading authority in the field of education, psychology, leadership, internationally known for his groundbreaking research on scholarship, on sense and belonging. He has authored over 14 books and more than 200 academic publications in highly regarded peer-reviewed journals and volumes, plus dozens of widely circulated op-eds, letters, and blogs. He is a continuing contributing, writer for the Entrepreneur, All Business, Thrive Global, and leads the Belonging Matters blog for Psychology Today. You see what I'm saying about the 5-year-old thing? But anyway, Strahan currently serves as professor of education and psychology at the Virginia Union University, where he also works at the office of the provost in the Center of Study of Historically Black Colleges and Universities, HBCU, as director of research, director of the Center of Transcendent Leadership, and principal investigator of the Belonging Matters Lab. He teaches courses, designs curricula, and or supervises doctoral committees at several universities across the globe, which explains where he is today. Got up a little early for us. Thank you. We appreciate that, Doctor. A leading voice with subject matter expertise in data analytics, human centered design, strategy planning. Strayhorn earned his bachelor degree from the University of Virginia, master's in education from UVA, master's in psychology from Indiana Tech, and in a doctorate from Virginia Tech. He just left the state that one time to get that master's in psychology. So he stayed home, in his education, and full circle. Now he's back at Virginia Union. Driven by a genius passion for helping others, Dr. Strayhorn has dedicated his career to working with individuals from underserved, vulnerable, and system impact backgrounds. He is a member of Dennis Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated and
Okay.
serves on several nonprofit boards, including Rainbow Labs, Career Analyst Organizations of America, Oregon Outreach Men Inc. in Houston, and Psychologists of Color Inc., to name a few. He is co-authored. He is co-editor of the Belonging Journal, associate editor of the Journal of Minority Achievement, Creativity and Leadership, and specialty chief editor of the Frontier in Education. He co-hosts a weekly Do Good Work podcast, and I had the pleasure of watching some of your podcasts, Doctor, and I like some of the subjects you cover, and we're going to talk about. I'm going to go to Dennis right now. He's going to talk about our upcoming event and what we have planned as a chapter. But and then you can get into what you do at Virginia Union. I'm sure some of the panel members will have some questions for you concerning that. But Dennis, go ahead.
Yes, on September the 13th at 9 o'clock to 9 to 12, we're having the Honorable James A. Overton Educational Community Service Scholarship Breakfast. This is our signature program that we have. Really was started by ministers a long time ago. And one of our namesake Mary Nelson, shared with me that it was the ministers that helped would help fundraise. And our primary purpose was to raise money for scholarship. Joe B. Fleming, Reverend Joe B. Fleming, who passed last year, or I think it was this year, he was really a stellar in knowing how to raise money for Virginia Union, especially in the Hampton Roads area. So we kept that going. We have a scholarship for Joe B. Fleming in 2022. We raised $32,000 for that. That was for um, the university and endowed scholarship. And then back to back, we came back and had a Mary Red Nelson endowed scholarship last year, or 2024, for 36,000. Well, this year we're going to have to support, and for Mary, it was the School of Social Work. We raised funds for the School of Social Work for students from the Hampton Roads area. This year, we decided, because of Department of Education, the elimination of Department of Education, we will focus on education at Virginia Union and how to support the students from the Hampton Roads area. This breakfast is designed to raise funds for those students from Hampton Roads that attend Virginia Union that's majoring in education. It starts at 9 o'clock. And from 12, we have five individuals we selected to recognize. We will honor them. The first one is a the, by the name of Betty Thomas. Betty's very active. She's a retired educator. Much of the focus is on education. She's a retired educator and worked very hard in her community with Zeta Phi Beta. And she's one of the older active members of our chapter. Betty used to be the chaplain of our chapter. And then there's the posthumously C.C. Tucker, who was a member of our chapter class in 1960, along with Betty. She's going to be honored. She passed away maybe a month or two ago. She was really with us not too long ago, but she was a very active member also. We're going to recognize also Delegate Marcia Price, who is a fire starter. She's very good, School of Theology, valedictorian. She's doing a lot of great things in the community, especially with voter rights. The Voter Right Act of Virginia, she introduced, so Bill 2021. We're going to recognize Dr. William Tyree III. He's been a very supportive of our chapter, STVU graduate 1999. And the third person would be Dr. Melvin O'Mariner, who's a graduate of the School of Theology from 1980 to 1987, and some of the works and things that they have done to support our chapter. We have limited tickets on sale. The tickets are $60. We hope that if you do not come, please make a donation. You can go to our website. I think that August you have. We also have the list of people who are donors and the levels of giving that you can participate in. So that's where we are. We're excited about it. It's not this Saturday, but next Saturday at the Morris Center, which is located not too far from the Scope in Norfolk.
Okay, thank you, Dennis. And let's remove that. And we can go back to Dr. Strayhorn. Dr. Strayhorn, let us know with all those things I read in your biography. Let us know how you have time for us, and we appreciate that. But how do you fit us in, and what is your role there at Virginia Union University? I saw one video one time when you were up there. uh, you wanted to sing at one of the gospel programs, but you left it to the professionals on that level. But anyway, tell us about your duties or your responsibilities at Virginia Union University.
Absolutely. Well, first, good morning to each of you, and
Good
certainly to
morning.
all of those who tune in, will watch later in the almighty and powerful Mary Red Nelson alumni chapter of Virginia Union University. I'm Terrell Strayhorn and have the fortunate pleasure of, as you heard in the bio, serving as the interim dean of the school, Evelyn Reed Syfax School of Education. I also work in the office of the provost. I've been at Union couple years in different capacities. And, primarily at my core, also serve as professor of education and psychology. I came into higher ed as an instructor. I came into higher ed as a teacher, eager to work with, sculpt students' minds and futures. Used to say young people's minds, but as I'll talk about in a moment, especially at universities that are on the move like Virginia Union, our students are all across the life spectrum. So we've got traditional age students who are somewhere between 18 and 22, but because of some new initiatives at the university, the important work of our enrollment management team, all of the divisions under the leadership of the 13th president of Virginia Union University, Dr. Hakeem J. Lucas, we've created multiple pathways into the university. So now we've got a sizable and growing graduate student body. We have adult learners. We have students who come to us who have dependents, they're student parents, students who are living with disabilities, military vets, students who study 100% and entirely online at the university. So it's a great day to be at Virginia Union University and also to talk with you in the alumni chapter. How do I do it all? I mean, you've got to do like the folks who I'm joined in this episode with, and that is my grandma, when she was alive, would say, you got to live right. And that'll keep you looking good and being healthy. The other is you got to have a schedule. So keep your schedule, organize your day. And like the host, good brother Slim Overton, I do have some coffee every now and again that will give me some extra energy when I need it. But otherwise, I get excited talking about the work that we're doing, because at my core, I'm an educator. At my core, I'm a teacher. And so, I've worked in several places. When I finished my doctorate at Virginia Tech, took a job at the University of Tennessee, Knoxville, stayed there for about 5 years, moved through the ranks of promotion and tenure, was recruited to and hired at the Ohio State University, went to Columbus as a Buckeye for 7 years before I got my first administrative appointment, which was at Lemoyne-Owen College, another historically Black college in Memphis, Tennessee, where I served as vice president for academic and student affairs and was in a leadership fellowship around the time of COVID. And part of our fellowship required fellows to shadow a president. And I had lined up 4 or 5 different shadowing opportunities with university presidents in 2020, January and February of 2020, when the world shut down. And one by one, these presidents called. This is really reflective of what we all will know in a moment, and the conversation I hope we can have about the School of Education, right? So in January and February of 2020, I had sort of committed to 5 or 6 shadowing opportunities with presidents across the nation, PWIs, predominantly white institutions, as well as historically Black colleges and universities. And one by one, they started canceling because as the world shut down, they were shutting off access to their campus. They wanted me to come shadow them, learn from their leadership, but said we'd have to wait until after the pandemic when people could get back together. Every single president canceled on me except one, Dr. Lucas, who called and said, look, I'm shutting my campus down too. You can't shadow me in person, but you could shadow me virtually. And I worked with him and the then Chief Operating Officer and Executive Vice President, many of the alumni will remember her name, Dr. Aaliyah Carter, to plan a full day of online shadowing. That was creative. That was innovative. That was before its time. But if you know Dr. Lucas, he's got a way of thinking futuristically about education in a way that keeps, sustains plans, sustains operations, and in the case of our university, sustains our business operations. So came to Virginia Union after that shadowing opportunity as an associate provost, really charged with working in research, innovation, and graduate education, served a 2-year stint as provost. Have been in a number of capacities, but just recently, Dr. Lucas tapped me to be the interim dean of the School of Education, Evelyn Reed Syphax School of Education. And the time I've been there, which is, I've only been in this seat for about a month, it's been exciting. So I wanted to take a moment to share some insights about what we're doing in the School of Education, some ways that alumni could be involved, and then I'd stop and entertain any questions for you. As I said, we are pretty laser focused in this interim year on some key priorities. I've met alumni, not only of Virginia Union, but of the School of Education all across the globe, literally. And one of the things many of them talk about is the size of the school, the size of the programs in the school, this vibrant sort of community where you could learn under the tutelage of faculty who invested in students' development as teachers, as educators, as intellectual and critical thinkers. And so we've got to get back to that, growing the enrollment of the School of Education. And so we've got some exciting programs. We do offer programs at the undergraduate level in education and secondary ed and special education. At the graduate level, we have a master's degree in curriculum and instruction. We're sort of building out some brighter tracks within that master's degree so that someone can come and certainly get a master's degree in curriculum and instruction, but maybe their track within curriculum and instruction emphasizes urban education, higher education, or leadership. And then we will, in the future, grow that master's degree into a on-ramp into a doctoral degree. So we're going to grow our enrollment. We've got the degree programs that will help get us there. What we've learned is that in keeping with the university strategic goals, and as alumni, you might know, we have 4 university strategic goals at Virginia Union. One is academic excellence. Whatever we do, we want it to be excellent. We want it to be rigorous. We want it to equip our students for the promise of a limitless future, as we like to say. So the second USG, university strategic goal, is around student success. We want students to gain access to Virginia Union, but access without success is useless. The point of coming to Union is to graduate. So we want to make sure that whatever we build provides the kind of support for students to be successful there. The third university strategic goal is entrepreneurial enterprise. And you'd be surprised how many of our students today not only come and want a degree, they want to be equipped to own their own business. Even in education, we've got students right now who are excited about starting their own tutoring business, their own coaching firm, figuring out how to monetize their intellectual property. So maybe I write a curriculum, but I don't want to write a curriculum and sell it to somebody else who's going to sell it. As a student, as a graduate, as a Panther, I want to write my own curriculum and sell it, write my own books for revenue. That's that entrepreneurial enterprise. And then last, fourth university strategic goal is always about brand prestige. And that is that when our students graduate and they go out into the world, we look at them and say, there goes a Union man or woman, because they live up to the brand. They embody our core values. We call it Inside VUU. So we're trying to grow enrollment, advance student success. That is, make sure that our students are successful. They get good grades. They go to class. They graduate at the undergraduate level within 4 years, at the master's or grad level within that 1.5 or 2 years, because it costs to stay in school beyond that. But also for our teacher ed prep, we're really laser focused on this, guys, and that is making sure that they're equipped to pass the praxis, that they're passing the exam that leads to licensure. That's another major emphasis of ours. As I've already said, we're going to ensure academic excellence. That is, make sure that we are building rigor within our programs. We're already recruiting, hiring, onboarding new faculty. If you give me a second, I'd love to shout out our newest faculty. We have three new faculty really in the School of Education. Dr. Regina Frazier, some will know her name because she is currently the president of the Council for Exceptional Children within the state of Virginia. We also just hired and onboarded this year Dr. Livingston, one of our full-time men who teach on the faculty, who has a background in leadership, technology, coaching. He's doing some really exciting things in that space. And then Dr. Terry Alsbrook, and many may remember her name. She taught with us part-time as an adjunct. We've hired her on full-time. She's really hit the ground running with some of our classroom teaching and curriculum kinds of courses. So that's the third. And then finally, while we do all of this, as we know, we can't do this alone. So we're going to be working to build stronger partnerships with schools, with districts, with colleges and universities and other stakeholders, including our amazing alumni. Alumni are not just our past. They are our present, and they are the fuel to our future. So if we want to achieve our strategic plan, even in this interim year and beyond, we know that it's going to take partnerships, it's going to take collaboration, it's going to take cooperation, not competition, with other universities, other schools, and most importantly, our alumni. Those aren't just buzzwords to me. They're the foundation of how you really prepare future educators, leaders, and change makers. So, we know that our faculty, our staff, and our students together make us strong and stronger. That it's our alumni who are the living testimony of our impact. If we know anything about the quality of our brand, it's through our alumni, the kinds of opportunities they've been able to achieve, the kind of doors that they can open. They really are critical, mission critical to our future. And so if no one said this to you, to all of the alumni, thank you for what you do. Thank you for being engaged and plugged in with the university. Thank you for being plugged in and supporting the School of Education. You may be asking, how can I get involved? Well, let me share a couple of ways and then I'll turn it back over for some discussion. One, please partner with us to mentor and to network with our students. If you are in the Richmond area, stop by Martin E. Gray. We will be having several community events, town halls, other kinds of gatherings. We'd invite you to come in person, or if we live stream or hybrid stream, that you could plug in remotely. Our students benefit tremendously from our alumni who can share wisdom, who can open doors, who can walk with them on this journey toward the promise of a limitless future. The second way is, of course, scholarships and fundraising. A small investment goes a long way in making a difference between a student stopping out or even crossing the finish line. Brother Overton, I was meeting with the student. We just started a new academic term. And I was meeting with a student in my office who had everything, good grades, good test scores, took care of themselves to come in looking presentable. And this is not a judgment on what they wear, how they wear, what their hair looks like. Look, we are diverse, and Black is beautiful, and all of our students are diverse in everything. We got Black students, Latinx students, tall students, short students, thick students, thin students like myself, right? We've got them across all categories and groups, and that's beautiful. That's the richness of our legacy. However, I was meeting with this student who had a schedule, who was eager to attend school, but had an unpaid balance that was keeping them from completing the registration process for this term. And as I went into the system and realized what we were talking about is $711. Now listen, $711 is not chump change, but $711 cannot be the barrier that stops our students, our Panthers, from crossing the finish line. And so every time you give, every dollar you give, no matter how small, how large, how many times every gift is an act of the belief in the promise of a limitless future. It's a demonstration of your faith in the university. It's a demonstration of your faith in the place that helped create you. And so having a reserve of funds from which we can draw to say to that student, listen, you've done your part, you've studied, you stayed the course, you came back, but this $711, we will not allow it to be the stopping point for you. And through those kinds of resources that really are powered through our amazing alumni and other donors, it allows us to ensure the continuity of the journey for the student. The third way that you can partner with us is through partnership. We got alumni who are in schools and districts and organizations. So if you can help us in placing our students in schools and helping us secure internships, and listen to this, SIM-ternships, because increasingly schools, districts, and organizations are doing internships with students, but they're powered online, just like we are connected today. So helping us secure those opportunities for our students to build employment pathways, these are ways that the alumni can be involved in the work we're doing. Students come to Virginia Union for a lot of different reasons. It's not just to get cool sweatshirts like what I have on. They come to get degrees. If you stop a student today and say, hey, why did you come to Virginia Union? What do you want? Most of the students, regardless of the school they attend, whether they're in the School of Theology, shout out to my colleague, Dr. and Dean John Guns, or the School of Arts and Sciences, my colleague, Dr. Dean Holly Freeman, they come to Union, ultimately get a degree to get a job. So this is why one of the metrics of institutional success that Dr. Lucas has set up for all of our divisions is what % of our graduates go on and get a degree? What % of our graduates go on and get a job? What % of our graduates go on and start that job earning $60K or above? We can't do that without our alumni. Now, here's the thing. I've been talking about the School of Education for the past month on different radio shows. Again, thank you for this opportunity at some of the meetings in our local area, and even at some of the national meetings where I've been speaking or teaching as an intellectual or as a national sort of thought leader in the space around student sense of belonging. And time again, people say, oh my gosh, I didn't know Virginia Union School of Education had this. I didn't know the School of Education offered this program. I didn't know we had a School of Education. So alumni, we need your help in raising the visibility and advocating for our school. Alumni help raise the profile of the school by celebrating our successes. We talked about it yesterday on the phone, me and the guys in this show, and that is so many times alumni hear the bad news. I'm trying to tell you there's some good news about what we're doing in the School of Education. We've got an Education Leaders Summit coming up in November. Stay tuned for that. We are growing all of our social media and putting out there front center our faculty. I just told you about our faculty and our students. We've got students we have 11 students right now who are teed up on deck to take the praxis right now. So these are students who are ending their academic journey, about to enter the profession, and getting geared up through the programs and the initiatives we're offering for that teacher licensure exam. We've got faculty who are publishing books. Dr. Michelle McQueen Williams, many of the alumni will remember her name. She just released a new book called 3 More Words About Leadership. Dr. Natalie Delbridge, who's our department chair, just released a book with Dr. Quarles in our School of Business. Both of them come together and publish a book on AI, smart, historically Black colleges and universities. I myself wrote a book about the future, creating future possibilities for the future of HBCUs. It's an exciting day. We've got teachers, scholars, and scholar practitioners in the School of Ed equipping our students for the future. Alumni help raise the visibility by celebrating this success on social media, by attending our events, by talking about it in your networks, in your churches, and certainly advocating for the School of Education. And then lastly, we have a set of advisory boards and alumni councils. You have a seat at the table. I'll be reaching out to our chapters, to the presidents of our alumni chapters, asking for representation to help us think about the past and how beautiful and bright it's been, the present in light of any challenges and opportunities, and then charting a path to the future. Our programs must remain relevant and connected to the field. And so at Union and the School of Ed, we don't just prepare teachers. We prepare leaders for today and tomorrow. That's our university mission. We prepare torchbearers who light the way for the next generation. But most importantly, we prepare Union men and women who are poised and ready to seize the promise of a limitless future. And our alumni standing with us, there's nothing we cannot achieve. Thank you.
Yeah, Doctor, and before my co-hosts have their questions, and we certainly received everything you just said. And one thing you mentioned, it was funny. I was talking to my daughter the other night, and she's also a college professor at Gordon University in Atlanta. And we were talking about the importance of creative thinking and developing and maintaining that ability to creatively think. And we kind of look for that in students that receive the scholarships that we offer, that they have the ability to creatively think, and they should have that going into college, but some of them don't. And it's important to continue to help them develop that while they are at Virginia Union. So, co-host, you have any questions for our guest?
if I may,
I think I may have missed it. I guess the question.
Yeah,
Go
Dr.
ahead.
Strayhorn.
Yes.
Okay, hi. This is August Fuller. I just have a question, and I currently my monthly donation goes to the uh, School of Education, but I guess my question to you, in light of some of the global issues affecting education and especially teachers, there is a perception, and I guess you can validate this or not, that there's difficulty in getting African American students to look at education, especially Black males. And then, secondly, the other issue, which if you could speak to, is those that complete a course of study. The next barrier, of course, is that praxis, which would mean you may have been prepared and you're ready to serve, and probably have been an excellent performer in the classroom, but that praxis, at least at one period of time, was a big factor in a lot of our teachers not being able to have a career. They would stop right there in their tracks. They would get 3 years to extend, but after that third year, if they had not successfully passed it, they were stopped. My thoughts or questions to you is, I know it's going to take a village to address that, but what are some of the things that the school is doing there, and what would you like to see more from us in dealing with that particular problem?
Just trying to make sure I remember both parts. Okay, so here's the first part, which I sort of alluded to.
A recruitment issue. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it is. And we talked about this yesterday on the phone, Mr. Riddick and I. Education is facing all sorts of challenges right now. And we haven't even talked about some of the federal shifts and changes and movements that at least influence and perhaps blemish the reputation of the profession. I come from a teacher. My grandmother, my mom's mom, was a teacher for 55 years in North Carolina. She helped raise me. She never taught me formally in the classroom, but taught me in many others in learning spaces. And so I say that because growing up, I was super proud of my grandmother, because going to her small coastal town in North Carolina, you would meet people who would say things. My grandmother's last name is Warner. They would say, "Miss Warner was my fourth grade teacher." It was a moment of pride. "Miss Warner taught me in fifth grade." It was a moment of pride. They were proud. The teacher was heralded and uplifted and celebrated as a leader, as a transformative force in the neighborhood, in the community. And now we chart our way forward to 2025, where the narrative about teachers is not that. It's that it's a demanding job where it quickly leads to burnout. You're overworked, you're underpaid, you're expected to teach to an exam. It's not exciting, it's not innovative. These are not the words that typically attract people to a profession, right? Whether it's teaching, whether it's law or medicine. And so we've got to deal with that. That's not just for someone else to deal with. Even in the Evelyn Reed Syphax School of Education, we're working to change the perception of the profession. And how do we do that? Well, through the curriculum, through our guest speakers, through the engagement with alumni, and the exposure of our students and prospective students to teachers and educators who have changed the world and who are changing the world. Like, we've got, anyway, I don't want to go too far ahead of myself. We've got speakers lined up and other initiatives that many of our faculty are working on building out for the School of Education that will expose to students that you can start in education and end up in politics. You can start in education and end up in business. There's enormous amounts of money to be made in corporate training, and many of those folks have backgrounds in education and teaching. Now, listen, we also want teachers in classrooms, schools, and districts. And we've got a problem in this country that still today, many and most teachers are young women. And so the role, 1% of teachers in the US are men, and certainly men of color. And so as I shared with Brother Riddick on text yesterday, one of the things we're trying to build out now are pipeline programs and pathways for men to come into teaching. And one sort of hook that we have, and I mentioned it earlier in Dr. Livingston's background, is around coaching. I've met so many students who say things like, I don't want to be a teacher, I want to be a coach. Well, a coach is a teacher. If you've ever coached, whether it is coaching in sports or coaching for life or coaching, I do corporate coaching where I go into companies and my job is to help VPs and executives believe in their brand, believe in their mission, believe in their people. And I'm sitting there trying to coach them. Listen, you can hit those quarter goals. You can build this new product line and win out in the marketplace. How did I learn it? Because at my core, I'm a teacher. So we've got to figure out, how do we help people who have those kinds of aspirations see teaching as an appropriate and suitable major? How do we retool and revise our curriculum so that it's also equipping students for that kind of coaching foundation, those kind of coaching theories that are applicable both in education and beyond? And so we're doing that. We've got some sort of boutique programs we're trying to build. It'll take some resources. So thanks to those who are already, thank you for your monthly gift to the School of Education, Mr. Bullock. Those resources make a difference. I was sharing with Brother Riddick, and I'll stop on this one, Riddick, the other day, that as I went through Martin E. Gray, I saw a room. It's not a very large room. It doesn't need to be. But right now it's, a couple of tables and chairs. And you asked about praxis. So here's what we know is that this is not unique to Union. Many schools of education struggle, especially at, enrollment-driven universities with limited resources, equipping their students to pass the praxis. But there are at least three major factors that influence student success on the praxis. And the research bears this out. One is this, that the praxis, when my grandmother passed the praxis, it wasn't even called the praxis then, but when she passed it, it was a paper exam. And you went into a room and you sat down at a test like you did the SAT and the ACT. The praxis core and the praxis subject matter exams today are administered online in a time-controlled environment. And so I don't know if, I'm on your show, I'm speaking. I keep looking at the clock to see how long I've been speaking. I don't want to go too long on any one answer. Well, that's okay for your show, right? But what if I were taking the praxis right now? And I'm preoccupied with the time. Am I taking too long on this question? Am I taking too long on this section? How long do I need to put on each section so I can get through the entire exam? Those are skills that schools of education teach their students as part of the coursework. How to take exams in online environments, how to think about how to use your time. How much time do you apportion to each section of the exam so you get through it? If you've ever taken an exam and didn't get to the whole last section, it can be the most defeating moment of your life. No matter how much you studied, you could have gotten everything right, but just knowing I didn't get to those last 5 questions, it deflates your confidence, and we don't want that for our students. So what we're doing is this room that I saw, we're trying to, one of the things we want to do is turn that into a praxis prep lab, where our students can go into that room under the support of faculty. We have a woman, Dr. Amber Brown, who has done a lot of praxis preparation. She's teaching a course right now, EDU 190 and 192. These are praxis prep courses. We want students to be able to go into that space that's properly fitted with computers and chairs and the materials they need to practice taking the praxis. Because practice does make perfect. And so we want to do that. I think that's a way for us to grow students' confidence in the exam. The second is the factors I talked about, exposure to the exam. The praxis doesn't change year to year. So we've got to make sure that our students know the kinds of questions that are on the exam. I was a fellow at the Educational Testing Service in Princeton, New Jersey, where they make the praxis. Right. And so leveraging that network of friends and colleagues, we're going to try to make sure that our students have access to the best in class kind of training for it. And then last and finally, we've learned that students do well on the praxis when the courses they take prepare them for the exam. I'm not talking about teaching them to the exam. I'm just saying there are certain domains. We've already started some of this cross-analysis, brothers, in the School of Education. So we know for a fact that one of the areas that the exam touches is around sort of core mechanics, critical thinking, numeracy, and literacy. We offer solid coursework in those spaces. We're doing well. We'll keep our students in those courses. But let me tell you something. The exam also measures policy issues and legal issues in education, for which right now we have very few courses that our students must take in those domains, which means without coursework, I'm going into the exam and I'm being examined on or tested on something I've never studied. That won't happen going forward. We're going to make sure that our courses also map up to the major buckets of the exam and other elective areas, and then boost their confidence, give them a training site for it, and watch our praxis scores soar.
Okay. All right. All right. Well, thank you. I could ask more, but I'm going to yield to my panel members. After a life of education over 40 years, these things are dear to your heart. And my beginning started right there at Virginia Union. In fact, as a sophomore, we were out in the fields doing different kinds of tutoring of students that had been identified. And by the time we were juniors, we were over there at RCAP teaching reading under the guise of teachers. And of course, your regular student teaching. So we were well prepared. And we did not take the praxis. We took the NTE. That's what it was called in my day, the National Teachers Exam. So you had to get a score and all that. But we're very proud. When I said we, I'm speaking for those educators who finished during that era of what we learned and experienced at Virginia Union. And we just want to do all that we can to ensure that that legacy continues on, because it does contribute to a limitless future in education. Yeah.
Doctor, I want to ask you this because this could affect a student's education as well as his scholarship. And I think we all know someone or know new people that first year or later on that sort of buckled under the pressure of trying to get their education, starting off, coming from home, maybe sheltered from some things or naive to a lot of things, or in your third year, sometime the pressure gets to you to the point where you're psychologically affected. And with your background in psychology, what would you say to incoming students or students that are already there, uh, in order for them to balance themselves as far as navigating through the process of getting their education and keeping their mindset? Because a lot of people come from different places and you run into different people that surprise you. You might think everybody's your friend, and a lot of things happen during your college experience that psychologically affect you and the learning process that you might have to go through. And we've seen students have to leave, and lose their scholarship because they had to leave because of mental issues that arise because of the pressure from their family to do well or on themselves to do well, and just the pressure of just being away from home. So, how do students, because they would have to know that going in. So, what would you tell students going in to be psychologically ready for the college life?
Yeah, that's
I
a
know that's
great,
a loaded question, but
we
but
got
I
to
think it's important because, like I said, it could affect their education and their scholarships that we try to provide, or any kind of help that we try to provide as alums. If they don't have the correct mindset in order to handle what's just getting the education, just trying to graduate and get those chapel credits.
Well, let me approach it this way, because I saw President Riddick also had a question. But one is, you said it best, and that is mental health matters. being well holistically matters. I can't tell you how many students I've met who have the grades to do well in school or to stay in school. They may even have the finances to stay in school. But if they're not managing stress, managing life, managing the pressure well, it will compromise their success. You said it will compromise your success. It will, you will be so overwhelmed and stretched so thin and so insecure and unsecure about your future that it will erode and use up our psychological bandwidth. You can't think straight, literally, is the way students will talk about it, right? You can't, because you're sort of all over the place. You're pulled and stretched in so many different ways. You're not managing the pressure well. You're afraid and managing anxiety. You won't go to class because you'll sort of be spread too thin and confused about what to prioritize, what not to prioritize. You won't be turning in assignments. So I think one is to underscore the importance of mental health, psychological health, and well-being as part of the student success formula. So I said earlier, one of our 4 major foci in this year is going to be around student success. And so we're already partnering with the Division of Student Development and Success with our new vice president in that area, Dr. Davita Haywood, to make sure that our students have access to counseling, to therapy, to student health, that when they're not well, physically or psychologically, they can get support. That we're also exposing our students to promising practices in well-being, meditation. And listen, we have a new dean of the chapel at Union. And so chapel is a great place for students to go, faculty to go, to refresh, to recharge in the middle of the week, to sustain themselves. There's a link between chapel attendance and investment and student success. And so one, as a dean, communicating this, letting students know it's okay to not be okay, but don't stay there. Access the resources and the support you need to get better, to be better. The second is this, school ought to be challenging, but college life shouldn't break you. And so working to make sure our faculty understand that we don't build weed out courses at Union. We're not trying to weed anybody out. We're trying to bring more students in. We're trying to offer an academically excellent experience matched with appropriate support for them to be successful. That getting them to the promise of a limitless future and requires, one, for them to be well physically and psychologically enough to get to the finish line. And so we have a regular sort of cadence and rhythm in our faculty development, our teacher training workshops, to talk to faculty about the fact that it's not about just challenging students. It's also about supporting them. It's not just about dumping a lot of reading on them. It's also about equipping them with the skills to learn how to move through that reading. It's not about just giving them long writing assignments, but working with our writing center and our writing specialists, make sure our students can write and write well enough to be successful there. So there's that kind of piece to this as well. And then lastly, around the psychological and mental health piece, I teach both in education and psychology. Last week, I was teaching my psychology class, and as I went around the room, I asked students to respond to some question. But I said, hey, I want you to add on, where are you right now? And where are you going? Got 42 students in that class. And I can't tell you how many of them struggled with that first question. And they said, what do you mean where I am right now? I'm just here. I'm just being. I'm just lifing. Life is lifing. Well, to students who feel that way, I want to affirm it's okay to not know where you're going sometimes. It is okay for life to be lifing. All of us have had those moments. But again, Panthers don't stay there. You've got to have a plan. You got to be working on a plan. You got to be connected to mentors, advisors, faculty who will help you chart a plan for your future. And so I think part of this is affirming for students that it's okay to sort of be confused at times, to not know where you're going at time, but don't stay there, to then get about the business of building a plan. Your plans may change, your destinations may change, your major may change. And again, alumni are in the best position to come back, to plug in online, to write to our students and help them realize, hey, when I went to Union, My goals changed, but here's how I managed through that. Here's how I balance the pressure. We got lots of students who say things like, Dr. Strayhorn, they say, Dr. S, you don't know how much pressure I'm under. My mama is on me. My auntie is on me. My uncle is on me. And usually jokingly, I'll say to them, how dare you say that? My mama and my daddy were on me too in college. My dad had 10 brothers and sisters. All my aunties and uncles made sure that I was going to class, that I was completing my assignment. And if I dare not turn something in, I knew I was not going to get in trouble by just my mom and my dad. I was going to have to deal with my grandma, plus all my aunts and uncles. That's in all of us. And so sometimes it's helping students realize you're not the only one who has a go through. You're not the only one who's felt pressure. You're not the only one who's ever doubted themselves. You're not the only one who's ever wanted to throw in the towel, but you can't do that. What you got to do is tie a knot and hang on. You got to draw on that resilience, that strength, that grit, that tenacity. You got to stay connected. Students like to disappear when times get rough. That's not the way to stay the course. It's when times get rough, you got to reach out for help. Sometimes help will come your way, but sometimes you got to raise your hand and say, Professor, I'm lost. Professor, that last part don't make no sense to me. I did the reading, but it makes no sense. Is there any sort of help you can give me? Is there something I can read that will enrich what I covered last night? Is there a YouTube video I can watch that will help this make sense? Those are the kinds of questions that we're equipping our faculty and our advisors with to make sure our students manage, are successful, but also stay mentally well.
Yes, Dennis, I'm sorry I jumped your question, but go ahead. You're muted. Dennis, you're muted.
Dr. Strayhorn had one question for you. With the dismantling of the Department of Education, what significant impact has it had on colleges and specifically to HBCUs such as Union?
It's a great question, President Riddick, and thank you for your leadership. And again, thank you for the opportunity to come and plug in on your show with the alumni chapter. You know, much of what's happening in our nation's capital, especially with the sunsetting and disbandment of the U.S. Department of Education, you know, it's so current and so present that every day we're trying to assess what impact will this have on education, on the profession, and on schools of education like the Evelyn Reed Syphax School of Education. And here's what we know is, fortunately, a lot of, and I mentioned it already, a lot of teacher licensure standards are set at the state and the local level. And so far that seems to be continuing. So we've got reciprocity agreements so that students who, sort of pass the licensure and get a license in the Commonwealth of Virginia, that license is transportable and transferable to places like North Carolina, South Carolina, and the like. And so that seems to be continuing, although we are carefully monitoring that situation to make sure that our students who earn their degree from our School of Ed and then get their licensure within the Commonwealth of Virginia, that none of that movement in DC changes, where our students can cash in on the promise of a limitless future, that they're not restricted or constricted just to the Commonwealth. They can move around as their careers and their lives take them in those directions. The second thing is this. You may know we have federal grants in the School of Ed. These are grants that fund our praxis prep, that support technology expansion and integration, that give us dollars that allow us to offer diagnostic testing and coaching to our students, that really provide resources to pay some of our part-time personnel and our adjuncts so that we can offer, summer camps and exciting curriculum. Well, right now some of those grants have been stalled. Some of those grants have been vacated, not many of them. Of course, we're monitoring that closely along with our colleagues in the Office of Research and Innovation. Shout out to Vice President Dr. Linda Jackson and her team for helping us with that. But we are carefully assessing the impact of the closure and the dismantling of the Department of Ed, really primarily on our grant situation. And one of the things we're doing, other than appealing to our alumni and other donors to help us, generate resources to recover and replace those dollars, is we are already starting to write more grants primarily to foundations, not so much to federal agencies, to see, to tell them what we're doing. I mean, like I said, it's an exciting day. Most people who want to support education can get behind equipping students for success with the practice. They can get behind curricular alignment and review. They can get behind on-ramps and pathways for diverse teachers, including men coming into the profession. And so we're just trying to tell our stories, tell it well, outline what our goals and our deliverables are, and then find resources to help us ensure success of the good work that's already been started.
Thank you. Thank you. Can you also talk about the STEM grant that you recently received at Union?
Yeah, thank you for that. I don't know how in all the preparation I outlined for this, I forgot about this, but you're exactly right.
That's a big deal.
What do you say?
That's a big deal.
It's a big deal, and I appreciate the opportunity to talk about it. So one of the things that I've said earlier, I've served in a number of capacities at the university. I was once the interim dean for arts and sciences, and in that role, but still a full-time professor in education. And as a scholar myself, I've been interdisciplinary, not just in education and psychology, but as I was teaching students, and this is true today, President Riddick, that we have students in the School of Education who want to be science teachers, who are in the School of Ed, but really want to be computer science teachers and teach computers and programming and coding, right? And so though in education, I've always been thinking about the connections between education and social work, education and psychology, education and STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math. We certainly have students in the School of Education who want to be math teachers. And so leveraging that understanding, I partnered with Dr. Francis Mensah, who is department chair of natural sciences in the School of Arts and Sciences at Virginia Union. He also just got an award as Faculty Member of the Year from President Lucas. But Dr. Mensah and I came together and said, look, we've got to make STEM exciting and help our students realize that this is where you want to be. The future of today and tomorrow, look how we're plugged in. We're plugged in together through StreamYard. That's a technology. You probably have heard about the expansion of artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence is not just ChatGPT, although that's a major part of it. You know, artificial intelligence has always been with us. It's Siri, it's Alexa, it's Google. It's how you can be in a different city and through your smart device, adjust the AC or the temperature of the cooling or warming system in your home. For many of us who go online through Amazon and shop, if you ever bought a shirt and then something suggested a matching pair of pants, or you brought some sort of beverage, a soda, and it suggested, hey, wouldn't you like to have these chips to go with that? That's artificial intelligence getting to know us and using that information to make recommendations for our cart. Well, while this is growing and expanding, we've got to make sure that our students are learning about artificial intelligence, even in education, that our students are learning best-in-class technologies about how to teach students. We've got schools ready to hire our graduates out of the School of Education, and these schools are 100% online, or they're in person, bricks and mortar, but when teachers get into that district, they're going to be given an iPad, and all of their students have access to this technology. I've met with those principals. I've met with those superintendents, and what they want to know is, do we prepare our students to teach with the power of technology in their hand? Well, to do it, that's the integration of science, technology, engineering, and math in education. And there got to be a couple of through lines: technology, innovation, sustainability. So Dr. Mensah and I wrote a grant that was to the American Society of Engineering Education. And it's all about infusing our curriculum with these kinds of concepts. The evidence is very clear that when the course is about innovation, it's about entrepreneurship, it's about sustainability, it's about bringing your best ideas to the table, students are interested. We can't lead with algorithms in math. We can't lead with equations in math. You can't lead with, COBOL or some programming language in computer science. It just doesn't attract people nowadays. But if you flip it and lead with what they care about, and that is making a difference in the world, social justice, equity, strengthening communities, family, those kind of subjects get people excited, leaving the world better than it is. These words and concepts attract students to the course. So this grant provides resources for us to start transforming and revising some of our entryway courses around these concepts as a way of recruiting students into our majors, making teaching and learning exciting, and then scaling that into our other courses. And so now we've moved through the first year and a half of that grant. One of the things we're going to do now is write for a larger ask with the National Science Foundation. It was just in Montreal, Canada, presenting about this grant project. And the project officer from NSF was in the audience and said, "Oh my gosh, I love your energy. I love what you're talking about. Send me a one-pager. I want to give you all more." And guess what? If the project officer is watching your show, stay tuned. You're going to hear from us because we want more. We need more. Our students need more in order to deliver on. So that's what that grant is about. We'll continue to scale. The last thing I'll say is this, that it's not just about curriculum. We also know that students learn, and many of the alumni will remember this, learn through positive, strong connections with faculty and staff. We've got to get students connected. Where's this, post-pandemic? The pandemic divided us, and we're still trying to figure out how to come back together. And so we're trying to reimagine spaces, create events, mentoring programs that will get our students connected back with faculty, staff, and alumni in meaningful and purposeful ways. And then lastly, students thrive when they learn in environments that are uplifting, that are strengthening. And so we've got to make sure that our infrastructure, I'm talking about our building, is a place where students they see themselves reflected on the wall. We have an idea right now, we have a picture to Evelyn Reed Syphax. I got to tell you this. I met students this past season of registration. And I said to them, "Welcome. Are you an education major?" They said, "Yeah." I said, "Wow, that's congratulations for being a student in the Evelyn Reed Syphax School of Education." I said, "Hey, by the way, who is Evelyn Reed Syphax?" Most of them don't know. And so we have a picture to Evelyn Reed Syphax in the building. We're going to be doing other kinds of things to make sure students know who Evelyn Reed Syphax. We've got students, and I'll shut up on this, I promise. We've got students who are very interested in getting their degree from Union right now. They're within a year and a half of graduating. They have a passion for working with young people. They are not interested in only going out and working for a school district. They're interested in starting their own academies. I was meeting with a young woman the other day who has a young son, but didn't know who Evelyn Reed Syphax is. I said, "Young woman, do you realize the namesake of our school was just like you? She was a mother to a son that, because of the social, political context of the times, her son couldn't get access to the kind of school that she wanted him to. So she built her own school for him in Northern Virginia. That you are studying in a school named after a woman whose aspirations and whose outlook on life is similar to yours." You got to know that, right? That we've got students who are members of historically Black fraternities and sororities. We've got students right now who are AKAs and don't know who Evelyn Reed Syphax is. She's your sorority sister. These are the things we have to help them understand. And then lastly, we just lost our beloved trustee, Dr. Lucille Brown at Virginia Union. And so we're trying to find ways to honor the life and legacy of Trustee Brown, who was also a long-term educator, has a school in Richmond named after her. These are the things that we want to bring into the building so that when students walk down the hall, they know I'm studying at a place that produced outrageous leaders, that produced groundbreaking scholars, that produce trailblazing educators. And if they can do it, I can do it too.
Good job.
Wow. Good job. Thank you. And we want to, before we end, we want to give the information again about upcoming event. But before we do that, I want to thank you for coming on. I want to show this. I want to ask you, these are just a few of the, excuse me, 14 books you have written, you have authored, and some or all of them still in circulation? And if so, excuse me again, how do people find it?
Absolutely. Awesome. Yes, all of them are in circulation. Thank you for showing them on the screen. We've got several books about student sense of belonging. That's been the focus of my research more recently, because we know this, that students go to college, they come to schools of education because they want to be successful. It's not just students. Moms, dads, aunties, uncles send their students to college. Adults go back to college. Why? Because they want to be successful there. We know from research, some of which is my own, that for students to be successful, it's not just about going to class. It's not just about getting good grades, because good grades sometimes depend on learning in healthy, supportive, and learning environments, like we've talked about in this episode. Being connected with educators, teachers, professors who care about you and your success. Feeling like you matter, you're important, someone's in your corner. That's what sense of belonging is all about. And so the books sort of get to that with insights for teachers, educators about what they can do, the roles they can play in that. So if you're really interested in those books, you know, I'm on all things social media, Terrell Strayhorn. I've got links to most of these on my LinkedIn. Certainly for anybody who said, you know what, I want to get books by the faculty in the Evelyn Reed Syphax School of Education at Virginia Union University, go to Amazon, go to Barnes & Noble, go to your favorite book provider and type in Virginia Union, hit enter. You'll see books like the ones that are on the screen from Terrell Strayhorn, but you'll also see books like the ones I mentioned, Dr. Michelle McQueen Williams' book on leadership. She's got 2 of them. Dr. Delbridge's recent book on smart HBCU or smart AI HBCUs. And so I certainly want to encourage you to support all of the scholars and the authors that are at the university, but certainly in the School of Education. And if you're an educator, and you get one of these books, then come to one of our events, and it's great. Our faculty there, we would love to autograph or sign the book for you, connect with you. But most importantly, my grandmother, when she was alive, Brother Slim, she had all of these books. I forget, my grandmother died some time ago, so I didn't have all of the 14 books available when she was alive. But every single book I wrote, President Riddick, my grandma had a copy of it. Sometimes I gave it to her, and sometimes she would surprise me and find a copy and buy it. I went to my grandma's house one time and I looked at her, they don't even have these anymore really, but coffee table in her living room, and all my books were lined up on the coffee table. I said to my grandma, I said, Ma, oh my gosh, you have all my books. I said, which one is your favorite? And my grandma said, I don't know, because I've never read any of your books, baby. I said, you know, got them all. She said, no. She said, your books are way too long for me. So one day my grandma said to me, listen, I called her Ma. She called me Rail. She said, Rail, I'm going to read one of your books. Which one do you recommend? She said, now listen, I want to read this book when I sit down at my kitchen table and drink my coffee in the morning. I want something that's really interesting. I want it to be full of stories. Don't give me nothing boring. Which one of your books would you recommend for somebody who really wants to read a story? I got to be honest. I looked at the blue and the white book. I looked at the red book on the end. That's a textbook. I looked at the blue and the white book toward the end. That's another kind of textbook. And I looked at my grandma and said, don't read any of my books yet. Because what I had done at that point in my career is I had written research books and scholarly books. They're good books. They're textbooks. They have a point. If you're trying to learn about pedagogy, read these books. If you're trying to learn about curriculum, read it. But if you're looking for a dynamic story, you got to come closer to now. My most recent book on historically Black colleges is full of stories. My most recent book from 2019 on sense of belonging, it's full of stories. It was my grandmother, a teacher, a graduate of an HBCU, Elizabeth City State University, who helped me realize that I'm a man of faith. So the Christian scripture says, in all thy getting, get an understanding. It was my grandma who rounded out my formal education and said, baby, with all that training you've got, don't forget to make sure that people get an understanding. It's the stories of the books that help people get an understanding of how students navigate. That's what Brother Slim told us. Of how students connect with others to navigate tough political times. That's what Brother Riddick told us. How we can make sure that more young men get into teaching. That's what Brother Bullock told us, right? It's the power of story. And it's since 2018, I've been telling more stories anchored in my research, but stories. And that's what you'll find, I think, in all of the books from our faculties, that if nothing else, we have tried to craft ourselves as scholars, as researchers, but master storytellers. And to all of our alumni, thank you for this opportunity. Please come back, connect with us, and tell your story, because your story will affirm the future of so many future Panthers.
Okay, thank you very much. My co-host, if you either one of you like to end with a recap of event that's coming up
No, we
on the
look
13th.
look forward to partnering with the School of Education. This is what this scholarship breakfast is about. So we got some good ideas we're going to take back to the executive board, and you're going to be hearing from us.
Thank you. Awesome.
Look forward to seeing you on the next Saturday, the 13th of September.
Okay. Well, we want to thank everybody for watching, and make sure you like, subscribe, help us grow this channel for our alumni show, and look forward to many more shows. And I forgot to mention, don't forget to watch the Do Good Work podcast that Dr. Terrell is a part of. A very interesting subjects that they cover on there and guests that they have. So, and hopefully he'll give us a shout out. So help grow our channel as well. But anyway, we want to thank you all for watching. We appreciate you, and make sure you save that date. And we're getting close to selling out our tickets. So, but as you were told, you can always also donate to our cause. We're helping students, and want all the alums to remember, while you enjoy the memories of you attending Virginia Union University, make sure you don't just look back, you give back. We appreciate you. God bless you, and we'll see you next time on the Mary Red Nelson Panther Nation Alumni Show. Have a great day.